We're back here on Sports Extra 2 around 12:35, but now it's time for 5 Live Formula One. It's Monaco Practice 3 today, and leading the team is Harry Benjamin. I have a question for you, Harry. I have this marvellous picture of you having a great time, all your yacht parties and all your fantastic lunches as well. Do you have a special wardrobe for the Monaco Grand Prix?
Oh, absolutely. Of course you do.
Tell me. It's got to have at least three special gilets, at least, I imagine.
Well, absolutely. Also, I mean, it's getting a bit hot, so the gilet can sometimes have to be well rested.
Forgot about that bit. Yeah.
You've got to have a nice suit or a blazer for the evening. That's the key to Monte Carlo.
It's a wonderful picture.
I'll tell you what, though, Kevin. I've just had a croissant by the harbour. The temperatures are hotting up, and I'm presuming your Worcestershire mornings are the same.
I've just had a free coffee from the coffee machine, mate, and it was very nice, in fairness. But anyway, all yours.
Thank you very much, Kevin. We look forward to coming back to you after we're done here on FP3. Kevin Howes with full coverage of the county cricket here on 5 Live. But right now you are listening to 5 Live F1. One last chance to get dialed in around the streets of the Principality, where precision is everything. A race that every driver wants to win. The true battle starts today. It's Saturday in Monte Carlo, qualifying day. But before that all-important power hour, we have one last practice session, more opportunities to fine-tune, but more risks taken as well. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Harry Benjamin. I'm up in the commentary box, which overlooks the short blast between the swimming pool chicane and Rascasse, with a lovely view of the pit lane. We can see opposite Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, and almost see down the entirety of the pits. And if I squint hard enough, I can see, I think that's the 1997 dance and movement champion waltzing her way up and down the pit lane. It's Rosanna Tennant. Afternoon.
It is me, the very one, moonwalking my way up and down the pit lane this afternoon. Harry, good afternoon. What a lovely setting this is. As you say, your commentary box overlooks the run down into Rascasse, and I'm treated to the same vista because the pit lane is raised above that last part of the track. So I can see what's going on in the garages, and I can swivel round, see what's going on track, and then I can see the fans finding their place in the grandstands. A lot of caps on, obviously, because they're here to support different teams, different drivers, but also to shade themselves from the sun because it's a gloriously sunny day. About 19 degrees, but it feels a bit warmer, Harry. So I'm in a floaty dress. You were talking about Riviera chic. You do put on your best, don't you, when you come down here to the Principality?
Oh, absolutely. We wouldn't expect anything less. We'll be coming back to you throughout this FP3 session. Thank you very much, Rosanna. Alongside me in the commentary box is the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson, whose Oscar Piastri interview continues to bring in the clicks on the BBC Sport website, breaking all the records, I'm told, and back for a second bite at the cherry. We didn't scare him off too much in Miami. It's 1996 Formula One world champion, Damon Hill. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Damon, welcome back to the box. You fancied coming back then?
Yeah, I love this play. I mean, it's very nice to be with you again and on the BBC. So I enjoyed my experience in Miami so much. I'm going to do this one and the British Grand Prix. So it's a lot of fun. This is one of the best days, I think, in the calendar. The Saturday of Monaco is the build-up to the bigger, because clearly overtaking is difficult. We know that. But, you know, I always say to people who say, oh, the race was boring, you should watch qualifying. This is where we see who drives to the limit. This is where the really great drivers shine, and just watching these guys, even yesterday, around this place, I'm astonished. I mean, I can't believe I actually did it myself, but I mean, I look at these guys and they're kissing the barrier, and I mean, some of them hit it a bit too hard. But Rosanna, if Rosanna's down, we've got this fantastic view from the box here. We can see the garages, as you explained earlier. And Rosanna's down there, and I want to see one of those dance moves. And what we can do is, because we can put there she goes.
Night fever. I'm doing all Staying Alive.
Very good.
Can you see me?
Well, we're going to put up scores on our window commentary box. So you're
7.
So yeah,
that's a bit generous, Rosanna.
Yeah, sorry. Shouldn't write my own review, should I?
And then the people in the pits are wondering what the hell you're doing as well, because they can't hear what you're talking about. Yeah, we're very privileged to be here in this amazing venue, and I have bought a jacket, Harry, and you know, I've been on a boat, and I've been reading about yachts and the team principals, and the people in F1's their own boats. And I think that Toto, one of the things that caught my eye was a comment he made about a boat he's going to have, and he wants to have a a port for his helicopter. So because it ruins the aesthetic, it ruins the lines when you've got your helicopter on the deck.
Well, absolutely. That's what you would expect, though. You want absolute precision.
You think of everything.
Formula One team boss, and you've got to have clean angles everywhere you look.
You can't have your helicopter littering the deck.
I can tell you that Toto is Mr. OCD. I've been to his house, and it's like an ideal home exhibition exhibit. It's like everything in its place.
James Vowles was talking about having stayed. That was a very awkward team principal's press conference, wasn't it, with Toto cuddling James Vowles and James having to admit that he spent a week with Toto once, which was interesting. We didn't go into any detail, but I imagine if you're with an OCDC person for a week in their own house, then it kind of you get a bit tense.
Right, well, talk of yachts, that's all happening in the harbour, but we now have our first bit of Formula One track action for the day. FP3 underway, green light has been on for the last nearly minute or so at the end of the pit lane. For those who wish to do a sync up with our coverage, it's coming at you right now. We have 58 minutes and 58 seconds, 57, 56 and remaining, and I'll do those throughout this session. Straight out onto the track, Liam Lawson, Lewis Hamilton, Isaac Hadjar, Franco Colapinto, Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll all heading out there. Talk about this being one of the best days, Damon, and how you saying almost in disbelief about how they can do this. Was it 30 years ago you were on pole here for the Monaco Grand Prix?
If you say so. Apparently, someone did actually remind me of this. Of course, I have forgotten it was 30 years ago.
There was one crucial bit of that pole that you did not forget. What was that?
Oh, the qualifying gap between me and the next guy, who happened to be a German guy called Michael Schumacher.
Oh yeah.
And it was an absolutely humongous 0.8 of a second. So that was a good lap.
No such thing as the fine margins back then. You absolutely trounced them in qualifying. That's all to come a little later on, and we'll be bringing you that in full, by the way, on Sports Extra 2 from 2:55 ahead of the session starting at 3 o'clock. That's all later this afternoon. But right now, FP3 then underway. Mixture of the hard and the soft compound tyre being used for the time being, on with all the cars that are out on the circuit, which is actually now just Lawson and Colapinto after some installation laps from a few. Franco Colapinto making his way up the hill now towards Massenet, the left-hander, which leads you into Casino Square. And while Colapinto makes his way down, reflecting on yesterday, and one of the best views, if you are getting a chance to also watch this as well, is a fantastic overhead shot which contains
it's on a Google Maps image.
It is, isn't it? It almost looks like a Scalextric set that someone is pushing these Formula One cars down with a view from Casino Square all the way through Beau Rivage, the hairpin, and down towards Portier and the coastline, which is where Colapinto comes out through now and into the darkness of the tunnel. Yesterday in FP1 and FP2, Damon, it was very much advantage Ferrari and Charles Leclerc, which seemed a bit odd because he's been a bit downbeat since last weekend and actually all season.
Well, two things to say about Monaco. It is an outlier as a track. So the setup, the cars, you can't predict who's going to go well here, because what works at Monaco, well, very rarely work anywhere else. There's very few places like Monaco. And also, Charles lives here. And he loves it, and you can see there are some people just relish driving on this track. And I remember watching Jean Alesi, and Andrew probably remembers this, when he first turned up in the Tyrrell. Do you remember that? And it was just astonishing. He just was one of those drivers that loved this track, and you put him in the Tyrrell and he was nimble and he could get around, and he had that canard front wing. Yep. And they broke the mould because everyone was shocked. But this is the kind of circuit where some drivers shine and other people are intimidated and they feel constrained, and they don't exactly get on it quite so well as Charles did yesterday.
Yeah, Leclerc loves street circuits generally. He's fantastic on them, but he's especially so here. And I was speaking to someone at Ferrari earlier today, and they said Charles is on full energy when he's in Monaco, and he looks like it. The car is alive when he's driving it. And I think I have an answer to this Ferrari conundrum as to why they... Leclerc himself on Thursday was saying, I don't think we're going to be any good here, and yet he was fastest yesterday. It was only yesterday, of course, but I think there's a number of factors. One is Leclerc, he's fantastic. The other one is Ferrari historically have put a lot of effort into being quick in Monaco, and so they have a data bank of information that they can feed on. Even when regulations change from car to car, there's still sort of certain things that you can do. Third thing is that although the Ferrari's been slow in slow-speed corners all year, actually Monaco isn't all slow-speed corners, as everybody thinks it is anymore, because these cars are so fast. Tabac and Massenet, particularly, two of the best corners on the track, and the swimming pool entry chicane are all medium-speed corners, really quite quick. So the Ferrari's really quick through those corners. It's not as quick as the McLaren through the slow-speed corners, 5, 6, 7, 8. So Mirabeau, Lowe's, Portier, the Harbour Front chicane, Rascasse, and so on. But it's making up time in those medium speed. So you add those three things together and you get a car that's performing outside of where its driver thought it would. And it was interesting to hear yesterday Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, who of course used to work at Ferrari before he joined McLaren in 2014. He worked as engineer for Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso when he was there. He said, I expect Ferrari to be quick here before they'd even turned a wheel. And he's a very wise man. And an excellent engineer. So he obviously had worked all that stuff out before. It took me 2 more days of being in Monaco to work out what Andrea Stella already knew before he got here.
Well, I suppose also Lewis Hamilton as well, when you look at it, it's not backed up by him. He was only a 10th off Charles Leclerc at the end of yesterday's FP2 session. He finished in third. Piastri splitting them in the end. So clearly running well then for Ferrari. Let's see how they go in this session. The other thing that's going to be really intriguing, which we've been talking about all weekend long, as Liam Lawson, by the way, just goes to the top of the times. Only himself and Franco Colapinto have actually set any lap time so far. Isaac Hadjar is the third car out there. Everybody else not in too much of a hurry. We have 2 mandatory pit stops being introduced for Sunday's Grand Prix in an effort to try and spice up the racing here in Monte Carlo. We talk about how it really is Super Saturday here, which in recent times can lead, well, let's face it, to not the most exciting of Sundays, with everybody able to really manage their tyre pace and overtaking at an absolute minimum. So between Pirelli and the FIA, they have tweaked the regulation so that whether it is dry or wet, all drivers have to use 3 sets of compounds, which will lead to a second mandatory pit stop. How they do that? Well, I think everyone's still trying to figure that one out, especially with understanding how these tyres continue to perform. Lawson just on the radio saying the track grip is very low. Pirelli bringing a softer step of tyre here, like in Imola, the C4 acting as the hard, the C5 medium, and that C6 soft tyre too. So it'll be intriguing to see how that unfolds with the strategy. But, I mean, Damien, where do you stand on this being introduced? Do you think it is a bit gimmicky, or do you think it actually is quite good to try and find something?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think it's confused everyone. And then I think that's the good thing. We saw in Imola, actually, they brought a step softer. I mean, Pirelli have been reluctant to kind of go down a too soft tyre route. But if you've got a choice of 3 compounds, you know, something there is going to work. And what it did was it puts people in doubt with the strategies. There wasn't enough information for the team to have a clear strategy. So I think we got a good race in Imola, because you know the difference in the medium and the hard, it got people slightly off balance. So the same will apply here. Of course, this is, as I said before, an outlier track. It is all about qualifying. Once you qualified well, you can maybe you've got the upper ground. You know, you can choose a bit of strategy, gamesmanship here and there, but we have no idea what they have in mind for the race. And as far as I understand it, it is possible to leave your last stop until the last lap, even, you know. So will we see people stop? People at the back might, for example,
well, Oliver Behrman has got a 10-place grid penalty.
He's almost certainly going to come in after lap 1 and change tyres, because he'll catch them up again, because the first few laps of the Monaco Grand Prix are so slow. The guys at the back literally want to go faster. They can't, because the guys at the front are controlling the pace because they want to save their tyres.
It's interesting, though, because it's still a risk if you leave it. If you are an Ollie Behrman and you pit on the last lap of the race, you might not get that last lap, because if we get a red flag or something and that stops the race with 5 laps to go and you haven't taken that second pit stop yet, then there is a penalty coming your way. You can't just get away with it. You'll get a 30-second time penality for that, and it will dock you down. But then again, is there a tweak to be done there with the strategy, if you've got a second car in play?
This is the whole point, I think, Harry. because you're starting to go down this road of the permutations, and once you add in another pit stop, the permutations exponentially get larger. I think it's like, I'm not a mathematician, but someone can tell me that it's just because you've got one stop, then it's X, but if you've got two stops, then suddenly it's like 4X. It's not just double the jeopardy, it's probably quadruple.
Yeah, a bit like downforce squaring with speed, that sort of thing.
That sort of thing.
That's mathematician Andrew Benson in the corner there.
Yeah. Just don't push me on the maths, okay?
Well, Damon knows all about downforce squaring with speed, I'm sure.
It is a phenomenon. I mean, you want me to explain that?
Yes,
I can explain it. So
we've only got some Saubers going around at the moment. You might as well.
We're watching the lovely onboard shots from Monaco, which you can't see on the radio, obviously. But it is wonderful to go on board with these guys as they go close to the barriers. It makes you wince just watching it. But the point that you're making, Andrew, is that same with horsepower. To double horsepower, you have to times it by 10. It's not just a simple matter of doubling a number. So it's to get from 500 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower. It's a 10 times increase, as I understand it. And the mathematicians are listening to me right now and going, "You got it all wrong."
10 times increase of what?
Of the energy needed.
Okay.
And so it's the same applies to the downforce, which is that as the speed increases, if you're going 50 miles now, you get, let's say, one of downforce. When you go 100 miles an hour, you need 10. You'll get 10 of the number of the reference that I'm using there. So that's the point. Is that it works in reverse. So obviously, when you're braking in a Formula One car, think about this, right? So let's say at full speed at Monaco, these cars are generating their own weight in downforce. When they slow down for Ascas, they're losing like 800 kilos or something like 700 kilos of pressure on the tyres. So that grip drops off hugely and very quickly because they brake very quickly. So as you brake, you're losing grip as well as going slower and trying to slow the car down. So,
and that's why you have to stamp on the brakes with all your might at the very beginning of the braking zone and then bleed off gently as you come into the turning point.
So generally speaking, the drivers and the car cannot generate enough braking force to overcome the grip they've got at high speed, which is why the premium is on braking hard late, because you're still going fast. But of course, then that means as we bleed off speed, also the braking overcomes the grip, and that's why you see drivers locking up. And we saw Oscar Piastri yesterday get it slightly wrong, and he was saying the braking is very difficult here at Monaco for them. And he got it slightly wrong going into Sandoval, and it was got an indecisive position. He couldn't make the corner and he couldn't make the escape road, so he went straight on and had a very unusual incident for him. And that came on the back of his manager Mark Webber talking about how little crash damage that Oscar had in his career coming up to Formula One. And of course, lo and behold, it's like a commentator's curse, isn't it? His driver went straight in and crashed the car at turn one, but it wasn't too bad.
And there you are, everybody. Inform, educate and entertain.
And that is what we give you on the BBC. We do long run corner with Andrew Benson and FP2. I think we should do downforce corner for FP3 with Damon Hill going forward. Talking squaring downforce with speed, let's head over to our speedy pit reporter, Rosanna Tennant. Where have you found yourself?
I was wondering how that segue was going to play out.
I didn't know either, to be honest.
I hung with you, do not worry. It's been a bit of a slow start, hasn't it? A sort of easy, like, Saturday morning. The driver's quite slow to get in. I've just seen George Russell walk round into the garage. Max Verstappen was just lingering at the back of the garage, but he is now in his Red Bull, as is his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Ferraris were the first to blink, and then a little further up the pit lane, I checked in with McLaren just to see that everything was okay, but they said, yeah, absolutely, it's all part of the run plan. Because I was wondering, perhaps there's an element of tyre saving going on, given the strategy decisions that are coming the teams and drivers' way this weekend with that mandatory two-stopper race that we're going to see tomorrow. So, yeah, a little bit quieter than usual, I have to say. Well, busy in the pit lane because they're all still here, but quieter out on track than we're used to in FP3.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, though, just crossing the line to go second fastest on the soft tyre. Nico Hülkenberg is currently quickest in the Sauber on a medium tyre, 1:13.916. with 45 minutes and 32 seconds remaining of free practice 3 here in Monte Carlo. It's Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Hadjar the top 3. Bortoleto and Lawson make up the top 5, with Colapinto and Esteban Ocon, the 7 drivers to have set a competitive lap time. Alonso's been out there along with Stroll. Leclerc is out there at the moment along with Gasly. Behrman too, and Lando Norris has just emerged from the pit lane. To keep you up to speed, by the way, with how the championship standings stack up coming into round 8 of the Formula One season, well, it is Oscar Piastri who leads the way in the drivers. He's got a 13-point gap, 146 points to his name. Lando Norris in second. Max Verstappen, the top 3, they are separated by 22 points. That is less than what you get for a race win. Hamilton Radio.
We're sliding a lot. Just look.
Hamilton just feeding back. The rear is sliding a lot, losing a bit of grip on those rear tyres, perhaps managing the overheating on that Ferrari. Leclerc and Hamilton make up the top 5 in the Drivers' Championship. And over in the Constructors' Championship, well, McLaren have a rather large gap at the top of the standings ahead of Mercedes. Then it's Red Bull in third, followed by Ferrari and Williams. Yellow flag out on track for the Sauber of Nico Hulkenberg, who was just doing a little bit of reversing action down actually at Anthony Nogues.
The last corner, yeah. You don't often see that. I can't remember seeing anyone go straight on at the last corner, but he obviously went in deep, and you can see the skid marks on the track. We're watching a replay now, and we're watching him go through the exit of the swimming pool section and into Raskas, the penultimate corner, and he's done that perfectly well, overtaken a car coming in the pits and just got on the crest, and he didn't actually hit anything.
Sure what happened there?
Hulkenberg just saying, not sure what happened there. He actually passes his teammate, and then you sort of do go up and over a crest, and I wonder if there's a bit of if you slightly raised the car and then he locked the front right and went straight on.
I think I know what happened there. I think he saw the car on the right, which is his teammate, he said, Bortoleto, as you just said, and I think it just slightly distracts you, slightly makes you take a slightly different line, and it just shows you only need to be a little bit off here, a little bit late on the brakes, and he averted disaster rather well. But I don't know if he's done those tyres a lot of good, because he's left a bit of rubber on the road.
Lando Norris is on a quick lap on the soft tyre, making his way through the hairpin now. So much speed Lando Norris has displayed this year. He's had his struggles, though, in qualifying. The front end of that McLaren, if you're going to try and pinpoint any kind of weakness with that overall package right now, particularly if you're Lando Norris, is that front end affecting his driving style, not biting as much as he would like. How will that stack up at a track where qualifying is king? Despite our talk of Sunday and the strategy options that may become available, that doesn't take anything away from how important later on will be when you set your grid position. He's fastest through the middle sector, flies through the exit of the swimming pool chicane into the right-hander of Raskas, the pit lane entry to your right. He goes up and over the crest to Anthony Nogues, round the final corner, down the main straight where the DRS flies open. It's a straight, but it's not really. It curves to the right, crosses the line to go nearly 4.5 tenths clear to the top of the times. It's a 1:12.970 for Lando Norris. Hamilton second, Lance Stroll's popped up to third. The sound you're hearing at the moment is Max Verstappen making his way through the Nouvelle chicane, and it was a day that Red Bull wouldn't have been best pleased with yesterday. It was actually the sister team that had the better of them at the end of FP2, and Max Verstappen, well, he wasn't happy with the traffic and wasn't happy with the general feel of his Red Bull yesterday.
No, but we've seen this before. You never know what they're up to. They quite often don't show their hand on a Friday, and it does make me worry a little bit when Ferrari go well on a Friday in Monaco. We've seen quite a few times, of course, Charles Leclerc managed to put that right last year, but quite often they get all optimistic, and a Friday doesn't tell you anything. And even this session here will be, well, we'll know at the end of this session, we'll have a much better idea at the end of this session what the true form is, because they need to know as well, so they tend to pull out the stops. I read something interesting that Lewis was saying, though, because I was just listening to the radio communication there, and it's very much more succinct on the radio. I don't know, Andrew, if you feel the same, but I thought Imola was less of the drama on the radio and much more to the point communications.
Well, Hamilton himself has been quite defensive about that. He hasn't really felt that the reporting of it has been accurate in certain quarters. He thinks that there's never been a problem with Riccardo Adami, his race engineer. He thinks it's been perfectly normal. And people I've spoken to who are close to Hamilton say It's just a question of what gets selected, and if you listen to the radio of Leclerc, for example, with his engineer, you'll hear a lot, just as much shouting, or even more shouting than you get from, or disagreement than you'll get from Hamilton. I don't know whether that's true or not, but
well, we'll see. Over this Grand Prix, we'll see if something has changed. But I also think
right, though.
What was interesting, what he was actually saying was, for today or last night, he said he's not doing many changes. He's going to there's more time to come from driving the car, and I think this is the point about Monaco, is the engineers can change, they can fiddle this and fiddle that. If they change too much and you get a car that's unfamiliar, you lose confidence. You've got to lose 1 or 2 more laps to get used to the new setup. And so this is a driver's track. I mean, it still remains a massive challenge. There's no surprise that the great names have got pole position here, and I'm not saying that because I got pole position, but I mean, Senna's and the Prosts and the great fast drivers and the Schumachers and the Verstappens and the Hamiltons get pole here because they are so good at threading their way and getting familiar with this very tricky track.
Yeah, well, there's a few things in there, I think. First of all, so far this year, there's been a bit of a pattern at Ferrari where they make changes and then the car gets worse. So he'll be thinking about that. He'll also be aware that in Monaco's, of course, you well know, Damon, you build up to the fast lap in qualifying, don't you? It's about building confidence, getting secure with where the car is on the circuit, and that you can't just get there immediately. And as an example of that, I was speaking to Mario Isola, the Pirelli F1 head, this morning. He said the predicted pole lap time is 9 point something, and at the moment we're only at 12.3.
What was it last year? It was 10 point something, was it? No?
Yeah. So he wasn't sure that they'd get down there because he thought they were a bit far off that. But that just gives you an idea of how much time these drivers still have to find before we get to qualifying later today.
And as we speak, Norris has gone quickest on a 12.3, Leclerc on a 12.7.
To get out of the way, I couldn't see past the car that was behind me.
That was Lewis Hamilton getting rather close to Carlos Sainz coming through Casino Square, almost front left wheel and rear right tyre with a Williams making contact there, but a little bit of traffic management having to be done, which is, as you say, it's a driver's track, David, but it's also actually, well, the engineer's got to be pretty hot on it as well, particularly in qualifying.
It's almost impossible. You cannot make a car disappear, and Lewis yesterday had the most terrifying moment at the top of Massenet, at the top of the hill, when he came over the blind crest to find 2 cars blocking his path. He managed to avoid an accident there, but now seems to have held up. Was it Sainz or is it?
I think it was. I didn't see it there. Just coming back to the pole lap time from last year was Leclerc, obviously, with a 1:10.270. But at the moment in FP3, Lando Norris is quickest with a 1:12.343. So that will be a couple of seconds to find. We saw that yesterday with the track ramping up as well. I don't know how much we need to pay attention to half the track being resurfaced coming into this weekend, all the way from to back.
Well, usually that makes it faster.
Well, exactly,
so, yeah.
But now it matches up with almost the rest of the circuit too, so it should be equally smooth all the way round. So there's less different levels of abrasion to have to deal with. It's been resurfaced from Tabac all the way up to Massenet. So that's turn 12 to turn 3 in old money for those who wish. But Charles Leclerc,
we'll find out.
Yeah, we will.
Charles is coming to the close. He's just gone past the last corner, coming up to the line now. Let's see what time he can deliver. And it's a 12.1, so he pips Norris. But yeah, like you say, Harry, how are you going to get down to a 9 or a 10.0 or something like that? That's 2 seconds at least.
Well, at the moment, they'll still be running with a significant amount of fuel. They'll lower that for later in the session when they do the qualifying simulation runs. And then for qualifying, they're probably not on maximum engine mode at the moment, so that's a bit more time in the engine. And then, of course, there's a track evolution, and then the driver's properly, fully committing.
Yeah. You should be a driver, Andrew. You're coming up with all these reasons why you could have gone faster.
Well, I'm just interested to know, from your point of view, from your perspective, what is it actually like building up to a pole lap in Monaco? What does that actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what it's like to be Senna or Schumacher, but for me, I wanted, as you said, I wanted to creep up on it, because you get it wrong, and you're not going to gamble everything on the first lap you do, or when you've got half an hour to go in qualifying. If you've got 2 more runs or 1 run, you need to save up your best shot and the biggest gamble for the last run, because you could crash.
Well, even
And
Ayrton did that, right?
Yeah. So you're watching people getting confident. As you said, we've spoken about this. Confidence is everything. And some drivers have huge amounts of confidence, as we watch Max Verstappen entering the turn 1 and doing what time did he? Well, he's gone quickest. So you go 11.9, so we're into the 11s. And I'll finish my point. Yeah, it is basically you do try and creep up on it. We're watching Piastri now finishing his lap and having to overtake a car coming into the last corner, a bit like Nico Hulkenberg, but he's got this one right. He's slower in the... so maybe he got a bit of traffic in the last sector, so Piastri not managing to show exactly what he can do, but it is a case of right now they are getting comfortable. They're kind of trying to get that feeling that they know what the car is going to do, and then they can really start to take liberties with it. And you see some of the most extreme driving that you're ever going to see in Formula 1, where the drivers literally kiss barriers millimetre perfect or millimetre wrong. It's literally that, 2 mil more to the right of the exit. That's something important. You've seen drivers break track rods and not be able to steer and crash straight into the barrier. It's absolute every year. And we're watching Isaac Hadjar in the tunnel. That's another...
No, that was dangerous by Yuki.
Yeah, Isaac Hadjar on a quick lap, emerging to the exit of the pit lane. This is the sound of Yuki Tsunoda, which is the car in front of him, going rather slowly on that racing line, coming out of the pit lane, tries to move over to the left, and then it is...
Yeah, my bad to Hadjar. It was not ideal.
Copy.
I mean, sorry, but when you go through the tunnel, don't go at snail's pace. You have to go fast through the tunnel. I mean, we saw... was it an F2 race last year?
Isaac Hadjar was in exactly the same position he was just in, and another F2 driver called Rito Miata, and by, I think, an inch, Hadjar missed him.
Unbelievable. This is a replay of last year in the F2 race where the guy was going slower, and he came
was
around
more
the
on the inside of the tunnel, wasn't he?
And it was the opposite of what we just seen with Yuki, who was on the left. And was it Bortoletto who just missed it? No,
it was Hadjar who was approaching Miata in F2, and then Miata, as you're coming through the tunnel, it curves slightly to the right. Miata was on the inside going rather slowly. I actually think he had a bit of a problem. Hadjar on a quick lap
can't see him,
then just as you get to the middle part of the corner almost of the tunnel, saw him. Jolted the steering wheel left and managed to get away with it, but it's so easy to end in a big collision. That incident was noted and is now being reviewed. No further investigation by the FI stewards on that one between Yuki Tsunoda and Isaac Hadjar, who, worth remembering, Hadjar is going to have to build up his confidence again this weekend, or today at least, after 2 fairly hefty crashes yesterday. Max Verstappen, by the way, quick in the first sector, quickest overall already, and has just shaved 3/10 of his own lap time to go with a 1:11.6. Tsunoda's 4/10 away in second. Then comes Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton has now put himself into second. The time's ramping up as we approach the halfway mark. Charles Leclerc now retakes that top spot by just over 1/10 of a second, a 1:11.5.
Yeah, so the point to make about Max's time is it's set on the medium tyre. Charles, who just gone quicker, was on the soft, as was Hamilton, who's behind Max. And Tsunoda, impressively, is on the medium and is 4th quickest at the moment on a 12.0, which is half a second. Not too bad. I mean, behind Max at the moment.
Well, let's see. It's Tsunoda. I think if Tsunoda might well do what Max has done and then go again, so we'll see if he can improve if he has another lap on that medium or not. But Norris is the top 5. Then it's Albon, Piastri, Russell, Sainz and Alonso, the top 10. We're listening to Esteban Ocon coming into Raskas and actually behind a rather loose Red Bull.
Yeah, completely blocked me.
That was Max Verstappen, who was the Red Bull in front of him, who was looking a bit loose on the exit of Raskas and then dived into the pit lane ahead of Ocon.
It's impossible. You can't. You're going to get. How many years have we been watching qualifying in Monaco and hearing this? He blocked me. I got traffic. It is an art in itself, and it's a huge amount of luck as to whether or not you get a clear lap here.
30 minutes, 55, 54, 53 seconds remain of free practice 3. Really important session this, the last chance. All 20 drivers get before they lock in their setups ahead of qualifying, which is what they all aim to do, especially when it's Monaco Grand Prix weekend. Track position so important, but with Sunday's race having big question marks over the strategy with a mandatory 2 pit stop rule implemented, how will that affect things if you are starting further down the field? What if you're a top driver in a top team but has had a bad qualifying and you're suddenly way out of position and your teammate is favoured? Do you have to play second fiddle then when it comes to the strategy in the Grand Prix? Those are all the questions that the engineers and the strategists are currently weighing up as we continue to raffle through this weekend here in the Principality. But the track continuing to ramp up, the speed's continuing to ramp up, a mixture of medium and soft out there. Oh, a little bit of a twitch from Piastri coming out of the exit of the swimming pool chicane. He's making his way through Raskas now. Verstappen is currently second fastest. He's fastest of anybody in the first sector. The championship leader Piastri will cross the line first, losing time overall to Charles Leclerc. Still about 6/10 down for Oscar Piastri in 7th, as Verstappen, Damon, is flying.
On a medium tyre, so this is the interesting thing. He's doing a run, isn't he? He's doing basically a long run. He's able to get into the groove, get into the rhythm, and you can start to shave little bits off. Let's see what he does in. It's the quickest time we've seen so far this weekend, 11.2.
Well, we're now only a second off that pole time from last year. So, having talked about how quickly it would be to get down to it, well, we're getting there. It is a 1:11.233 for Max Verstappen, fastest. Then it's Charles Leclerc, it's about 2/10 adrift, followed by Hamilton, Albon, Tsunoda up inside the top 5. Then it's Norris, Piastri, Russell, Sainz, Alonso, the top 10. Gasly is in 11th ahead of Stroll. Then it is Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Lawson is a 16th ahead of Ocon, Bortoletto is 18th ahead of Ollie Behrman, and Franco Colapinto 20th and last of the race.
Yeah, I'm just looking at yesterday's times. I think that is correct to say that Max is quicker by a 10th or so from yesterday. So that was set by that can't have been set on a hard tyre. I'm looking at my screenshot I took of the times yesterday, but that's not right. It wasn't. Hard.
It's because the hard was the last tyre that he used. But it's not the tyre he set the time on.
Well, Leclerc out there on another outlap already. This is George Russell that we're listening to now, making his way through Raskas. It seemed like the general rhetoric after practice yesterday from both Mercedes drivers was that they were just a bit slow around here. Russell's currently 9th and just popped himself up into 7th. 9/10 off, though, with Kimi Antonelli a second off, down in 9th place. Getting a look at Franco Colapinto having
this is the
bit of contact.
So watching the exit of the
swimming pool chicane.
He just so we just watched Colapinto running just a little bit wide and what they call it kissing the barrier. Although you wouldn't want to be kissed by a magnesium wheel and a believe me, but the barriers are. We're watching another replay of more chaos of traffic on the circuit. So excuse me if I sound confused, but it's all happening here in Monaco, and yet again we're on board with a replay of another.
What's Stroll doing? I mean, he's just with blue flag, isn't he? No good.
So that was Lando Norris coming through Casino Square, stuck behind Lance Stroll, who then got out of the way, but that ruined Norris's lap, and then he had to get out of the way for the Haas coming through. This is just classic Monaco, isn't it? Yeah. You don't really get this anywhere else. This is a track that if somebody designed it today and pitched it to Formula One, they'd be laughed out of town. It doesn't meet the rules and the regulations. That it actually gets special dispensation because it's Monaco and it has the history, of course. But that's why everyone loves it.
Yeah, everybody wants to win the Monaco Grand Prix. I mean, come on, it is the one that you get remembered for it. Everybody knows this race. There's the Indy 500, the Le Mans 24 Hours, and there's the Monaco Grand Prix. I think that's the Triple Crown. The Triple Crown, as they say. But I was getting to the point about the barriers. That they've got the advertising warnings, and they're kind of like a wrap. You use that kind of very thin plastic, so they look like it's very smooth, but actually the steel barrier is behind that, and if the drivers hit it, which they do occasionally, they can rip all that plastic off the barrier. And we've seen this before where the plastic advertising warnings get wrapped around the car and the tyres and stuff, and they have a bit of a problem clearing that one up. And it doesn't do the aerodynamics any good having wrap all around your wings.
No, I can't imagine it would. But everybody at the moment behaving themselves as best as they can. A couple of glances with the barrier as Lewis Hamilton comes into the pits and the Ferrari mechanics do a pit stop. Should we check in actually down in the pit lane? Rosanna Tennant, where do you find yourself?
I'm outside Aston Martin. I'm actually looking up and seeing Liam Cunningham taking photos of all the action. Avid fan, the actor. He's currently taking a photo of Lance Stroll as he's just pulled up and the mechanics are now putting him up onto the jack. And I think they're going to wheel him straight into his garage. And the pit lane has gone a little bit busier, as you said. Lewis Hamilton just came in, his teammate Charles Leclerc's just come in. So a little bit more action for me to watch here in the pit lane. And while I was watching, I was also having a chat with the safety car driver, Bernd Maylander. And he was telling me that he is the first person that drives the track each morning. And he says with the resurfacing that they've done of the track, it feels so much better. And he says the base level of grip that there is now this year is way higher. Normally, he says, it's very green every morning. Of course, we have some party people and revelers every night here because the track is open to the public, so all sorts of things are being spilt on the track over the course of the evening. But he says the level of grip is way higher, and he said if it was going to rain this weekend that would make a huge difference. But I think it's set fair, Harry, so get that sun cream on, slip slap slop.
Absolutely, Rose.
I don't think we need it in here. We're in a box where we don't get to see much sun. We can see it outside the window, but...
yes, we've got a decent amount of shade. We'll save that sun cream for you, Rosanna, don't you worry. We talked about pole times earlier. For last year, Leclerc a 1:10.2. We're currently quicker than yesterday by about a tenth with a 1:11.2. Do you remember what your pole time was back in 95?
No, it'd be miles off. I was 18 something. What was it?
Okay, I'll give you three options after science.
I'm happy the car is giving me a good feeling. It's just, I need to see where it can be quicker.
That's science, just giving some feedback there. Down in 10th at the moment.
I'm gonna add a few caveats here. We're watching a car going into Sandoval. They used to have a barrier there on the inside. They've put a curb there. They've opened up the swimming pool. They've changed Rascasse. It's going to be a completely different track, really.
Okay, it's either closest wins between the two of you, Andrew Benson and Damon Hill.
I've got absolutely no idea.
A 1:41, a 1:31. Or a 1:21?
1:21.
Yeah,
1:21?
I'm going for 1:21 as well.
Okay, right, well now a 1:21 point what?
Oh, for goodness sake.
Because we've got to decide who's closer.
1.5.
1:21.5.
2.
Damon Hill, you win.
It was his lap, he should do.
A 1:21.9. That was your pole lap round here.
Well, see, look, I get faster as I get older.
Going a little quicker.
The older I get, the faster I was, as they say.
Absolutely. I can still remember the pole position time from the first Grand Prix I attended.
What was that?
The 1983 British Grand Prix. René Arnoux put it on pole in his Ferrari at 1 minute 9.462.
Wow.
How sad is that?
Everybody. And you remember any other pole times?
Nope.
Just René Arnoux. Funny how life works.
There's so many statistics out there, and I want to escape me, I'll be honest.
Try and get that one in on Sunday.
And my life is complete now.
22 minutes, 7, 6, 5 seconds remain of free practice 3. It's Verstappen fastest ahead of Leclerc. Norris, Hamilton, Albon the top 5. Tsunoda is 6th ahead of Russell. Piastri, Antonelli and Sainz the top 10. Then it's Alonso and Stroll the top 12. Gasly, Hadjar, Lawson make up the top 15. Hulkenberg, Ocon, Bortoletto, Behrman and Franco Colapinto, the 20 drivers. Majority in the pits at the moment, actually, with the exception of Albon, Hadjar, Hulkenberg and Bortoletto. Andrew, I just want to talk to you a bit. I think we're allowed to talk about it now, are we?
Not more René Arnoux talking.
We'll save that for later. And we've done the Piastri article now. But there was another chat, and there's a big name on site this weekend. Adrian Newey, in his first on-site visit with Aston Martin. His two drivers are currently 12th and 13th, off the back of a great qualifying in Imola, with some upgrades coming in for them too. But what's the consensus at the moment from Adrian Newey with his working since the beginning of the year in that team?
Well, the standout quote was basically Adrian saying that their driver-in-the-loop simulator, which they've invested millions of pounds in for their new factory, is rubbish. It's in his phrase, it's not...
Andrew, you should know better. He didn't say rubbish.
I was just about to quote him.
Come on then.
It's not correlating at all was Adrian's phrase, which is if
Is that code?
You know, that
That's
is code
slightly
for
different
rubbish.
to saying it's rubbish. But anyway, yeah.
I think it can be not rubbish, but right now it's rubbish. Okay,
Yeah.
That was the main takeaway that they've got. He said they've got a lot of good people, but a lot of work to do to get everybody to work well together. And he thinks it's a sort of function of the way that team's grown up from being a small team, Jordan, Force India and so on, which kind of traditionally punched above its weight, as he put it, to now being a big team which is underperforming. And the other takeaway is that he's very excited about his first race weekend working with Fernando Alonso, who's someone who he described as an enemy for a long time, but who he'd always wanted to work with, and now he gets to.
He was also a bit complimentary of Lance Stroll.
Yes,
Saying he got a bit of a bad rap.
I'm going to get this right because it's a really interesting quote. Just hang on a second.
Well, at the moment,
He said people have been a bit too harsh.
He said, he's had an unfairly bad rap on average. Any driver who gets to Formula 1 is clearly very good, but I think Lance is much better than people who've been very poor.
much better than people who have been very poor.
That's a kind of faint praise, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a bit of a
That's
backhand.
not exactly a
I
ringing
think he's trying to
endorsement.
say, but anyway, I'd agree with that. I think Lance is a much better driver than people give him credit for. But of course, in Formula One, what we're looking for is the exception, not the rule. And
if he were any other driver not related to the boss, he wouldn't be in Formula One.
No, well, this is the problem. Everyone employed by Aston Martin is paid by Lance's dad, so they're not going to slag off Lance, are they? Because it wouldn't make sense.
But I think it was interesting because the question was whether or not Adrian would be diverted from. We're watching a replay of a car actually hitting it's Albon just kissing the barrier, as I mentioned before about, and you can see the plastic. Advertising, you can't see it, I can see it. The plastic advertising being drawn off of the barrier by the speed of the car as it goes past, and so a good example of what I was trying to say there. That this circuit, they run so close to the barriers that they're actually unpeeling the advertising off of the barrier. But finishing on Adrian, the point was he can't. He's supposed to be working on next year's car. The massive regulation is, but his capacity is so huge, and you cannot keep that guy away from a racetrack or a racing car. He's come down to Monaco, and he's got a few ideas. He's talking to the engineers, and he will benefit that team. It'll be like he's got his magic wand, or whatever you want to call it. He's able to see stuff that other people miss.
You know this as well as anyone, Damon, but I think people underestimate about Adrian Newey. We all recognise he's a genius aerodynamicist, but what is underestimated about him is his, as you say, his ability to affect team performance in other ways. He's a great listener to racing drivers and an understander of what racing drivers need to be fast, isn't he? He's a brilliant race engineer. He engineered you for a period of time, didn't he?
I think. Yeah,
it just applies holistically across the team. But you go on because you work.
No. That point is, I don't think I'd be a world champion if it wasn't for Adrian. I know that there was many people that contributed at Williams, but I had him sort of as my race engineer in my championship year, and I don't know what he does. I mean, I tell him what I'm experiencing, and then he goes away and presumably he talks to the other engineers, and they change a few things, and it gets better. But yeah, he's able to listen and understand the language of a racing driver, and that's his real talent, because he knows that the car is a tool for a driver, and it's no good just having a theoretically quick car that should be quick if you can't drive it.
From the very first time of me talking to Adrian Newey, which is a long time ago now, he was always impressing about the importance of accessible performance, accessible downforce, whereas a lot of people in Formula One don't seem to learn that lesson, no matter how many times it gets shown to them. They're all after peak numbers, but it's no good having peak numbers if they're only accessible in certain conditions, and if they make the car feel nervous and edgy and the driver doesn't have the confidence to push it. Adrian's not about that. He's about getting the most available downforce the most of the time that he can, and that's why his cars are so quick.
Yeah, and you were talking about the correlation between the sim as well. This is also a very important part of our sport, is that what happens is if you're not careful, you get a kind of silo mentality where engineers see the numbers, whatever it is in the wind tunnel or on the simulator, they see the numbers and they go, the numbers are improving, therefore it's better. It's only better if it actually works in reality and the driver can drive it. And this is where you have to have a lot of different perspectives on things, which is what Adrian's very good at.
I like how Adrian picked his first race as Monaco, though. He didn't want the Imola last week. Here's Tsunoda.
I have so much instability, I don't know why.
Copy.
I've got so much instability, I don't know why, for Yuki Tsunoda, who's currently 7th fastest. He's out there on the soft tyre at the moment, at lap, which is 8/10 adrift of Max Verstappen, was on the medium tyre. Rosanna, you're outside Aston Martin as well, just while we're on Adrian Newey. Can you spy him anywhere nearby?
Well, Harry, yesterday I could. He was standing at the front of Lance Stroll's garage with his notebook, scribbling little notes down. He's left-handed, which I was just having a little Google as to whether that does really make you more creative, because there's a little bit of a stereotype, isn't there, that perhaps if you're left-handed you have a more creative flair, but the research is not exactly forthcoming. I'm just waiting now for Lance Stroll to be let out. The mechanic is standing with his arm out. Oh, he's given the signal, tyre blankets off. And out comes Lance Stroll, shiny soft tyres for the Canadian driver. But I can't see Adrian Newey. He's not there at the moment. But, as we know, he's going to be on the pit wall. And the pit wall is not in the sort of standard position you might find it at a normal F1 racetrack. Because Monaco is so tight, the garages are so tight, the pit wall is also moved up onto the first level of the pit building. And they overlook the start-finish straight rather than the sort of more traditional other side of the pit lane position.
Thanks,
so
Rosanna.
maybe he's there.
Oh.
Maybe he's there.
Maybe he's there, hiding away.
Now we're getting into the soft tyre war qualifying simulation runs now, and actually Hamilton has done his lap, and it's not looking particularly quick. He's sandwiched between the two Williamses, and we've got Lando Norris about halfway around his lap, Harry.
Yeah, getting a lap time out on the softs in the first lap seems a little trickier than they would like. Norris down on his time in the first sector, makes his way through to back now, which invites you into the outside wall, keeps his foot in it, up on time in the middle sector, personal best for Lando Norris, through the right-hander of Raskas, a little bit of traffic to his inside, Max Verstappen on the radio saying he's just got no grip, he's also out there on the soft tyre. Let's see what Lando Norris does across the line. In the end, can't improve, stays just over 2.5 tenths down in third. So this is quite a good indicator then of what we might expect, Andrew, for qualifying.
I wonder, is the medium tyre today suddenly proving faster than the soft? It looks like it might be.
Qualifying tyre now.
Yeah. Which caused lots of problems because Verstappen's used lots of mediums already today.
I did hear a rumour that the soft might well even, obviously it can't last as long, but it might well even be a better race tyre here this weekend.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think this is one of the mysteries, and this is one of the extra complications that might get thrown into this mandatory two-stop race that we've got in Monaco now. So let's see how these soft tyre runs go, because it's only the beginnings of them. They may find some more time as the session ticks down to an end.
To part answer that question, Andrew, and I know you've been spotting it as well as me, but Verstappen, he did his quickest time on a medium that had done 10 laps.
Yeah.
It wasn't one lap, so that, and a lot of the feedback is that from the drivers on the soft tyres, and it was the same in Imola a little bit as well, where they weren't so happy with it because it's maybe a bit too soft on its construction. Because when you go to a softer compound, it also changes the stiffness of the rubber on the surface of the tyre, so the tyre tends to move around a bit, or the extra grip makes the sidewall deflect more, so you get a kind of mushy feeling, which is not as you don't want around a place like Monaco.
No, and it's interesting because in Imola, people were speculating that maybe this C6 tyre, as it's called, the softest in the range, wouldn't work in Monaco either. The engineers weren't so convinced about that. They thought because there's much less energy going through the tyres in Monaco compared to the high-speed corners at Imola that it should be fine. But it's not looking, compared to Verstappen's medium tyre, used medium tyre run earlier, the soft is not looking that quick at the moment. Leclerc's just gone out on the soft again, improved, but he's still 2 tenths off Verstappen. Hamilton's out on the soft. He's just improved, but he's still 2.28 seconds off Verstappen's medium tyre.
It's the last sector where they're losing that chunk of time. Piastri did improve, but he's still nearly 7 tenths down, so I'm not putting that down purely to soft tyre improvement there. But I wonder, get the temperature of this tyre as well. I've know they've been trying to do a few little tricks with the tyre warmers that they were learning yesterday. You can use the tyre warmer to heat the tyre up to a maximum of 70 degrees, but that's allowing this soft tyre to overheat too quickly. So hearing maybe a couple of rumblings up and down the pit lane there, not using the tyre warmer to its max capacity, trying to keep that soft tyre within its operating window that it works best at. But I wonder if it is just falling off the cliff by the time it gets to that final sector, and showing that maybe this isn't the one that we're going to see in qualifying later on today.
Yeah, I think also a lot of people are just not getting a clear lap. I'd be surprised if anyone gets a clear lap here as we approach 10 minutes to go from FP3, the last chance that these guys will get before they get into qualifying, the real competition. So they are desperate to find comfort, to find a feeling, to find grip, and store that up mentally to prepare themselves for what's coming up. Because what you don't want to do is to go into qualifying with a car that you're totally unsure of.
We've got 20 cars in the grid, actually 19 out there. This is always the case in Monaco. What happens when we add 2 more next year, Damon?
That is a very good question. Well, of course, they used to have 24 and pre-qualifying. Do you remember those days? And the poor people who had pre-qualifying, they had to pack up and go home on a Friday, didn't they, if they didn't make it through? Is that right?
Did you do pre-qualifying when you were in the Brabham? I can't remember.
I can't remember. I think, was it 26?
Like you should have
26 cars on the grid going back a long time ago. Anyway. Yeah,
you must have done, surely.
I don't think I did pre-qualify. I think some of the teams had gone bust by then. And
1990 was the peak. Yeah, I think 1990 was the peak pre-qualifying year.
They didn't pass the financial qualifying,
but they did have it in '91 because Jordan had to pre-qualify in the first half of that season, and you were in a Brabham that year, right? So you must have been at the back.
This is why we have you, Andrew. You're here to remember all this stuff, and I just drive the car.
That's the 1996 Formula 1 World Champion Damon Hill, alongside the BBC's F1 Anorak correspondent Andrew Benson, myself, Harry Benjamin, up in the commentary box. We've also got Rosanna Tennant parading down the pit lane, and Piastri, well, he's picked up the pace. He is on the soft tyre, but he's actually been a little bit off it over all this session. He's down in 6th at the moment. Fastest of anybody, though, in the middle sector. Let's see if he can keep it together across the line for the current championship leader. That's a bit more like it from Oscar Piastri. An improvement on the soft tyre as well. Gets himself to second place, just over a tenth and a half away from Max Verstappen's time, which was still set on the medium tyre, though. So that is going to cause a few headaches for those up and down the field.
Yeah, so we've been loosely chatting about all sorts of things for the last 50 minutes. But now, well, we've been informing our listeners as to all sorts of things they should consider about the sport. But now we are watching cars fully committed. 90%, 99% committed around Monaco as they get into the last chance for their run before qualifying. And we're seeing some times tumble now.
Someone just had a go at me on hashtag BBC F1 for doing a time sync when it was inconvenient for them. So here's another one coming at you. It's 7 minutes, 37, 36, 35 seconds remaining. Seeing some quick laps now as the teams... Let's hear from Russell first.
People are going for double calls as well.
All right, well, you tell me what you want, because at the moment we're nowhere and I'm running out of ideas for this session.
So we're doing the double call.
Running out of ideas for George Russell and Mercedes. He's out there in 11th at the moment. Kimi Antonelli in 10th. So, Andrew, what does double cool mean?
I was going to say that suggests he's struggling to make the tyres last through the lap, because he's trying to double cool. Means you do 2 laps to cool them down between one lap and the next, one flying lap and the next. I say that Leclerc has finally beaten that medium tyre run from Verstappen on the soft tyre with a 1 minute 11.179, just puts in a very small margin point, 0.54 quicker than Verstappen's lap. But that's an indication that the soft tyres are getting too hot on one qualifying lap, and they're having to spend longer to cool them down for a second.
And you would have noticed, Andrew, that his first sector was a yellow. In other words, it wasn't as quick as his best first sector before. And yet he managed to do 2 purple sectors, the quickest of all of any cars for the last 2 parts of the lap, which means that he could have had traffic on the first sector, but it could also be that he's not pushing on the first sector to try and save his time, as we're watching Lando Norris also with a yellow first sector and a purple middle sector.
Yeah, exactly the same pattern as Leclerc just did. How's Norris going to get on here, Harry?
Fastest of anybody in the middle sector around the final corner. Anthony Noakes takes you up and over through the right-hander. Then the DRS line comes. The rear wing flies open, takes the line, down on time.
Too far already, man. It's undrivable, these tires.
Verstappen continues to struggle with grip out there. He's currently second. Leclerc fastest at 1:11.1. Norris third with that lap time, ahead of Oscar Piastri. Hamilton fifth. Albon, Lawson, Sainz, Tsunoda, Antonelli the top 10. Then it's Russell, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Gasly, Stroll the top 15. Hadjar, Behrman, Ocon, Bortoletto and Colapinto. 19 drivers out there at the moment. Just Liam Lawson in the pits.
So that was Verstappen complaining about the soft tyre. So this is really interesting because if you look at the list, I'm just going to look at the tyre sets available. So if you look at the list of tyre sets available, for example, overnight, Piastri and Norris only had one set of mediums left for the whole weekend. Leclerc had two, Hamilton only had one, Verstappen had two, but he's now used one of them for the first 80% of this session. This is the way they allocate tyres. There's far fewer medium and hard tyres available to the teams and drivers than there are soft tyres. So it's going to put them in a real quandary for qualifying later. If the medium is actually faster, what are they going to do?
And we just watched the start of a very quick lap from Lewis Hamilton. The first sector was the quickest of anybody. Listen to
Yeah, lots of traffic, mate.
Yeah, so he basically, I was going to go on to say that he had to back out of that lap, and he's just explained why. He's just come up against traffic, so he's lost. We don't know what his ultimate performance would have been as we were watching Max on the soft tyre, not going quicker than he's managed to do on the medium, I'm saying, because I don't think he's put in a purple sector on anything other than the medium.
No, Verstappen, who's been on the radio, not happy with how these tyres are performing, immediately gets out of the way, cuts turn one, Saint Devot, to avoid, I think that was the Williams of Alex Albon coming through. Charles Leclerc is showing purple sector one on the soft tyre, finds a bit of time, but stays quickest. 1:10.953 on the soft tyre for Charles Leclerc, which is working better for him then. So Red Bull finding trouble with this red wall tyre. Others now starting to find improvements on it. And the tyre temperature issues that they may be struggling with. Air temperature 22 degrees, track temperature ramping up 42.3 degrees.
So Leclerc's time that he's just set improved on his own time. That's set with a set of soft tyres that are 9 laps old. This is his second run on them. So it's a really confusing picture. There's going to be just turn myself off in the middle of a sentence there. There's going to be lots of head scratching in the middle of the pit garages between now and qualifying later.
Wish we could do that a bit more regularly, Andrew.
So this is reminiscent of qualifying. You know, in the old days with qualifying tyres. I mean, it was literally they got a tyre that would only last. They'd be rooted at the end of the lap. The whole artistry was bringing the tyre in on your out lap, and also knowing when you could push and hoping that they hold it together. But it looks like the soft tyre is not good enough for a whole lap of push around Monaco.
Which is incredible, really, because it's the least energy circuit on the entire calendar. So you have to ask whether this C6 tyre has been accurately judged and pitched by Pirelli at this stage.
It will almost certainly be the rears that are going off, because there's whilst the cornering loads are not as great, although some of the medium speed through the swimming pool section is quite high. It's the acceleration from a very low speed that puts all the work into the tyres, as we're watching Ollie Behrman accelerate out of Rascasse up to the last corner. On that little sector there alone, it's almost impossible not to get wheel spin as you come out of that corner with the amount of power they have.
Yellow flag out for Lewis Hamilton, who has had a little bit of contact with the wall. He's come to a stop. I think that is coming through Casino Square. The right rear looked like it had... Oh, front right is completely off. He's had big contact. Red flag with 1:42 on the clock. Lewis Hamilton, in the closing stages of the final practice session, has made contact with the barrier in Casino Square. The front right tyre is completely off. Looks like there's damage to the rear right as well. He's getting out of the car. He's right by an exit post with the marshals already there as he lifts himself out of the car. We haven't seen a replay of it yet, but good to see him getting out.
I can't be sure, but it looks to me, because the camera angle is too close in at the moment, but it looks to me like he's gone off through Massenet on the approach to Casino Square, hit the barrier on the outside with his right-hand tyres, which is in a Ferrari, which is ironic because 15 years ago, Fernando Alonso, when he was looking set for getting pole position in the Ferrari, did exactly the same thing, if it is Massenet. And actually, this isn't as bad Hamilton's accident. We're going to see a replay now.
So, up through Saint-Devote, climbing the hill for Lewis Hamilton. Clear track ahead of him. It snakes slightly left, then to the right, into Massenet. Oh, gets a snap and then tries to correct it, loses all grip into the outside barrier.
Yeah, I mean, really what people can't see, we've just seen, is that he's come up over the crest.
Guys, bit of wall. Damn. Sorry, guys.
No, it wasn't his fault. Literally, he came over the crest and he came upon two cars again, like he did yesterday, only these cars were further around the corner, and he had to take avoiding action, and he basically lost it because of just the surprise of seeing these cars going slowly in front of him when he's on a hot lap.
The three-time winner around the Principality now having to stand behind the barriers and look at his stricken Ferrari as it gets wheeled off the track by the marshals, doing an excellent job here, always so quick to act. Here's his teammate's reaction.
What did you say crashed?
Lewis, in turn 3.
That was Charles Leclerc's reaction to his teammate. So yeah, that was Lewis Hamilton coming up through Massenet, turn 3, that left-hander blind crest as it jumps you over, traffic ahead of him, gets the snap on the car, tries to control it, can't do it, into the outside barrier, skates across that wall and ends up stopped just on the right-hander coming through Casino Square of turn 4. That car now behind the barriers. Hamilton out of the session, but indeed that session over, but it's not quite how you want to end the last practice before we go qualifying.
It's
Kevin.
not ideal. You've got so much pressure now. I think they'll get it fixed. I can't really see from this shot. I've got an aerial shot of the car whether or not he's done the suspension. He did hit the barrier quite hard on the right-hand side, so almost certainly they'll change that. And when you get a shock to the side of the car like that, it can also go straight through the gearbox if you hit the rear tyre as well, which I think he did too. So bad luck for Lewis there, who was looking like he had a very good first. He looked like he was going well up to the moment he unfortunately hit the barriers, which is not really much consolation at all. But I don't think that was really his fault. He came over the blind crest and suddenly the road is blocked by two cars going very slowly, and he had to brake, I think, in the middle of that corner when you're fully committed. And yeah, so he's brought the session to an end, and we have learned a little bit, but it does look good for Ferrari. It's a shame for Lewis that he's got to rebuild the car. Hopefully they can get it all fixed and ready for qualifying. But Charles Leclerc is the quickest guy at the moment. He's maintained that pace that he had from yesterday, and maybe it's real for Ferrari.
For a man who intimated they would be nowhere this weekend, Charles Leclerc has topped all 3 practice sessions as his teammate Lewis Hamilton walks forlornly downhill back towards the pit lane. His teammate with a 1:10.953, 2/10 clear of the field. Max Verstappen in second, but not happy is the Dutchman on that soft compound tyre. Prefers the medium in second ahead of Lando Norris. Oscar Piastri right behind him in fourth, with Lewis Hamilton the top 5. Alex Albon 6th ahead of Liam Lawson. Carlos Sainz with 8th ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, and Kimi Antonelli rounded out the top 10. George Russell out of ideas, not happy with the pace of his Mercedes. He's down in 11th ahead of Fernando Alonso. Nico Hülkenberg in 13th ahead of Gasly. Stroll the top 15. Oliver Behrman, who will have a 10-place grid drop wherever he qualifies later on this afternoon, was 16th. Hadjar 17th. Ocon 18th. Gabriel Bortoletto 19th, and Franco Colapinto 20th and last. Rosanna Tedder then, I mean, I think this sets us up quite nicely for qualifying, not that it needed much setting up anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Super Saturday. Sign me up. But you're right. So many question marks, I think, still over which tyre is going to be the best bet for the drivers, the soft or the medium. I'm just watching the Ferrari mechanics wheel soft tyres across the pit lane and haul them over the Armco here where I am standing. So lots of organisation going on. I think they're readying themselves to receive Lewis Hamilton's car back at some point, and it's going to be a busy lunch break for them before they go qualifying later on, Harry.
Yeah, absolutely. Damon, as we get wonderful views of the harbour, it's now time to go and have our luncheon on a yacht. But before we do, your biggest takeaways and what you're looking forward to when we go qualifying in a couple of hours' time.
Well, it does look like Ferrari are in the hunt for this one, and I think Max is also strong as is McLaren. So we're getting the usual suspects, if you like, up the front of the sharp end in competition. Forget this very, very important pole position for a very unusual race where they've got to make 2 stops, which is implemented, and so there's a little bit of confusion because the softest tyre that should be fastest, Max is not happy with that one, and a lot of drivers are struggling to find out how to make this soft tyre work. So going into qualifying, a lot of unknowns, and we don't know as well as whether Lewis Hamilton's car is going to be all right and make it okay.
Yeah, well, the Ferrari team will be working hard on that in the lunch break, but Charles Leclerc certainly sitting pretty at the top. Standouts too, perhaps could we see some good results for the likes of Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz, and the Williams both up there too. Can Yuki Tsunoda try and find some more time in that second Red Bull? And actually Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls having a better turn of pace so far this weekend. He is in need of a good qualifying, but it's what we're all building up for later on this afternoon. Kevin Howes and the cricket team are here. We're off to a yacht, Kev. Enjoy.
Yeah, I've now realised it's the biggest con going. You're off to the Chippy, just like me. There's no difference there. But no doubt there'll be lovely fish and chips. OK, thanks. More to come from them this afternoon. The all-important qualifying, of course, for the Monaco Grand Prix. Later on, here on Sports Extra 2, we have got more cricket for you, plenty more cricket.